I'm Daniel Harper, and I remember the exact moment the food stopped having a flavor. Emily came through the door smiling, light on her feet, like she'd had a good day. No tension in her shoulders, no hesitation in her eyes. She kissed my cheek the way you do when you want credit for being normal, then disappeared into the bedroom. An hour went by, shower running, drawer slides, the soft click of jewelry. When she came back out, she looked prepared. Hair done, makeup clean, a blouse she saves for important nights. She wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. You made dinner? She asked, and her voice had that careful brightness people use when they're about to steer a conversation. Yeah. We sat down. Forks clinked. The room was warm, but I felt like I'd stepped outside. She started with harmless work talk, office shakeups, new initiatives, the usual corporate fog. Then she said his name for the first time. Ethan's under pressure, she said, cutting her chicken with slow precision. He needs someone he can trust. I didn't look up. He's going to recommend someone for the leadership role. It's complicated. She paused like she expected me to fill in the blank with encouragement. It's not just performance anymore. It's an influence. The word sat there, greasy on the table between us. I finally met her eyes. Okay. She nodded once like I'd approved the premise. So I've been thinking about what stability actually means for us. For us, that's how she packaged it. Like a product. Then her voice changed, less conversational, more deliberate. The kind of tone she uses when she's closing a deal. Friday, she said. I'm going to meet him at a hotel. I blinked, waiting for the rest of the sentence to reveal the joke. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She kept her posture straight, hands relaxed, like she was explaining a schedule. And I'm going to sleep with him. One time, the room went quiet in a way that felt physical. I set my fork down carefully because my hand had started to tighten without permission. She kept going, measured and calm. It's not emotional. It's strategic. It would secure the role. It would stabilize our future. You know how it is. I stared at her like she'd spoken a different language with familiar words. You're telling me this? I said. Like it's a promotion packet. It's reality, she replied, soft but firm. It's one night, one decision, and then it's done. I searched her face for shame, for fear, for anything human. All I saw was confidence. At that moment, I couldn't tell if I was being tested, insulted, or replaced by some colder version of my wife who decided marriage was a flexible policy. The dinner sat untouched, and the woman across from me waited, like I was supposed to negotiate my own dignity. I didn't raise my voice. That seemed to surprise her more than anger would have. Emily watched me the way she watches a room full of executives, reading for leverage, bracing for turbulence. She'd come prepared for a fight she could manage. Tears, maybe. Bargaining. A compromise she could sell herself later as mature. What she didn't prepare for was me going still. I took a slow breath, nodded once like I'd heard her, and went back to the plate. I chewed because it was something to do with my mouth besides say the wrong thing. She tried to keep it normal. I knew this would be hard for you, she said. But I'm being honest. That has to count for something. I looked up. Does it? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Daniel. I held her gaze, flat and calm. You already decided. You're not asking. You're informing me. I'm trying to protect what we've built, she said, and the words were polished, practiced, like she'd rehearsed them in the mirror while she got dressed for the betrayal. I didn't argue. There's a point where arguing is just you begging someone to be the person they used to be. I stood, took my plate to the sink, and ran water over it. Not because it needed it, because I needed the noise. Behind me, her chair scraped the floor. She followed me into the kitchen, voice lowering like we were in public. So you're just not going to say anything? I turned. What do you want me to say? That you understand, she said, almost impatient now. That you see the bigger picture. The bigger picture. Like my role was to zoom out until humiliation looked small. I nodded once, not agreement, acknowledgement. Go do what you're going to do. Her face tightened. That's it. That's it, I said. She stood there for a second, waiting for the storm. When it didn't come, she looked unsettled. Like silence was more dangerous than yelling because she couldn't steer it. Then she did what she always does when she thinks she's won the moment. She went back to her routine. She showered, brushed her teeth, climbed into bed like she'd just had a serious conversation about a budget. And I lay there next to her in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing even out. I studied the outline of her shoulder, the familiar curve of her neck, the small scar on her collarbone from a stupid accident years ago when we were happy and careless. I waited for the part of me that loved her to speak up, to plead, to offer hope. Nothing. It wasn't numbness. It was detachment, clean and sharp, like something inside me had stepped back and shut a door. By morning, I moved through the house with a calm that felt unnatural. Coffee, keys, shower, same motions, different man. Emily chatted lightly while she got ready, testing the air like she could reset the night by pretending it hadn't happened. She kissed my cheek again on the way out. I love you, she said, quick and automatic. I looked at her and understood something simple. A marriage can survive hardship, can survive fights, failures, rough years, but it can't survive being treated like a temporary inconvenience. I didn't explode. I didn't forgive. I decided. By midday, my mind stopped circling the same question. Did she really say that? Yes. She said it was clean, like a calendar invite. So I stopped replaying the words and started watching behavior. Emily used to be careless at home. Phone down, laptop open, the little trust you don't notice until it's gone. Now she guarded her screen like it held state secrets. She smiled at texts she didn't share. She took calls in the garage with the door closed. Small things, but they stacked. I didn't accuse. I didn't fish. I let her think the silence meant consent. That's when people get sloppy. Thursday night, she left her work bag on the couch and went upstairs to shower. I didn't dig through anything. I didn't break passwords. I'm not stupid and I'm not reckless. But the screen lit up when a notification came through, big enough to read from where I stood. A hotel name. The time. His name was attached to it like it was normal. My chest tightened once, hard, and then it released. Because that's what proof does. It doesn't hurt more, it clarifies. I took my own phone out and photographed only what was plainly visible. The same way you document a car accident before anyone starts lying about it. Date, time, the basics. Enough to anchor reality. Then I put her bag back exactly where it was and walked to the kitchen like nothing happened. When she came down, hair damp, she was relaxed again. Confidence. Like the worst part, my reaction had already been managed. You okay? She asked, too casual. I gave her a steady look. Yeah. Long week. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to scrolling like she hadn't just lit our life on fire. That night, I opened a fresh folder on my computer and started logging facts. Times, messages I could legally see. Anything that didn't require me to cross a line. Not because I wanted drama, because I wanted protection. Confusion is loud. Strategy is quiet. And while she was gambling on Friday, I was building a plan that didn't need her permission. I waited until Emily fell asleep before I made the call. Not because I was scared of her, because I wasn't giving her a chance to rewrite the narrative before it left the house. I'd found Lauren Cole's number the old-fashioned way, public info, a couple careful cross-checks. No hacking, no games, just a straight line from truth to accountability. It rang twice. Hello. Her voice was wary, tired. The kind of tiredness you get when you've been carrying more than you admit. Lauren Cole, I asked. Yes. Who is this? My name is Daniel Harper, I said. I'm calling because this is going to sound insane, and I'm not calling to gossip. I'm calling because your husband is planning to meet my wife at the Monarch Hotel on Friday night. Silence. Not the polite kind. The kind where you can hear someone's brain trying to protect itself. That's not possible, she said finally. But it didn't have conviction. It sounded like a reflex. I wish it wasn't, I replied. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm telling you what I know, what I've seen, and what's been stated out loud in my house. Emily's name is Emily Parker. She told me it's happening. She framed it as a career strategy. Lauren's breath hitched once. Then she recovered, and her voice sharpened. Why are you telling me? Because if we don't control the truth, I said, they will, and they'll make it sound cleaner than it is. Another pause. Then, do you have proof? I have enough to know I'm not imagining it, I said. Enough that Friday isn't a guess. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. Her anger focused like a lens snapping into place. Okay, she said. One word. Heavy. I leaned against the counter, looking at the dark window over the sink. I'm not looking to ruin anyone's life, I told her. But I'm done letting them risk ours like it's nothing. Lauren exhaled slowly. Then we stop it before they can deny it. That was the moment it shifted. 2 separate homes. Same betrayal. And for the first time since dinner, I felt something solid under my feet. Not hope, alignment. Friday morning, Emily moved through the house like it was any other workday. Coffee, hair pinned back, a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She even hummed once, soft and thoughtless, like the world was still intact. I watched her the way you watch someone driving toward a cliff with a calm face. Part disbelief, part acceptance that you can't steer for them. After she left, I didn't sit there and spiral. I didn't call friends for comfort or punch a wall for pride. I called an attorney. The office was plain, clean. No dramatic posters about justice. Just a woman in a navy blazer who listened without reacting. That's what I wanted. Not moral commentary. Procedure. I laid it out in simple terms. What Emily had told me, what I'd seen, what I suspected, and what I planned to do next. I asked questions like a man who'd learned his feelings didn't matter in court. What protects me? What backfires? What do I do now before anything happens? She walked me through it with careful language. What I could document, what I shouldn't touch, what counts and what doesn't. She didn't promise outcomes. She promised clarity. By the time I left, my next steps weren't emotional. They were logistical. I went to the bank and opened a separate account. Not to drain anything. Not to play games. To create a clean line between my life and someone who'd already shown she could rewrite vows into excuses. I changed the passwords to what was mine. I pulled copies of statements. I photographed the condition of the house and the major property. Simple record keeping, the kind that makes lying harder later. I kept everything inside the law. Because the fastest way to lose your footing is to let rage make you sloppy. That afternoon, Emily texted me like nothing was wrong. Running late tonight. Work stuff. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Work stuff. That was her favorite phrase. It covered everything from overtime to betrayal, as long as she said it confidently enough. I typed back one word. Okay. Then I printed the initial paperwork my attorney had prepared and placed it in a large envelope. No note, no plea, no explanation. Just the first official line in a life that no longer included negotiation. When Friday arrived, I wasn't eager to destroy her. I was ready to stop being the only adult in the room when consequences showed up. Emily left the house dressed like she was headed toward something that mattered. Not a night out. Not a mistake. A decision. She checked her reflection by the hallway mirror, adjusted an earring, and smoothed the front of her blouse like the image was the whole point. When she kissed my cheek, it was light, transactional, like affection was just part of keeping the story believable. I'll be late, she said. I know, I replied. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for tone, searching for threat. I gave her nothing. She walked out with steady steps and a straight back. As soon as her car turned the corner, I moved. Lauren and I had agreed on the basics. No scene in the lobby. No shouting into elevators. Proof, clean and undeniable, and then consequences. The Monarch was all polished stone and soft lighting, the kind of place that sells privacy as a luxury. I stayed out of sight, in a chair near the bar with my back to a column, watching reflections in glass more than faces. Lauren arrived 10 minutes later. Composed, jaw set, phone already in her hand like a tool. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. When the elevator doors opened and Ethan stepped out, he looked like a man who'd done this before. Confident, unhurried. wearing a suit that cost more than he deserved. Emily followed a step behind him, eyes forward, expression calm. Businesslike, like she was walking into a meeting, not a betrayal. Lauren stood. I watched the moment Ethan noticed her. His stride faltered just a fraction. Emily's face froze, the smile slipping off like it had been peeled away. Lauren didn't scream. She didn't rush them. She walked up, lifted her phone, and spoke in a voice that carried without being loud. "Open the door," she said to Ethan. "Right now." Ethan tried to talk first, hands up, words forming fast. Lauren cut him off. "Don't." Emily took a breath like she was about to pitch her strategy again, like she could control the outcome with phrasing. Lauren looked at her once, cold, clear, and said, "Save it." Then she stepped past them toward the room, recording what they'd planned to hide, turning their private lie into something solid. And just like that, the excuses started dying. By Saturday morning, Ethan and Emily were already trying to manage it. Damage control, narrative control, the kind of frantic cleanup people do when they realize the mess isn't staying behind closed doors. Lauren didn't give them the chance. She'd recorded enough. Faces, voices, the setting, the timing. Not a blurry rumor. Not a he said, she said. Something concrete. Something that didn't require imagination. And she didn't send it to friends. She sent it to the people who had the power to act. HR. Compliance. A senior leader 2 levels above Ethan. The kind of inboxes that don't care how charming you are, only how expensive you might become. Because companies don't punish affairs out of morality. They punish risk. A boss leveraging proximity. An employee using intimacy as a ladder. A leadership role tied to it. That's not romance to them. It's liability with a headline attached. Emily texted me that afternoon. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long second, then set the phone down. When she called, I didn't answer. Lauren texted once, short and clean. "It's in motion. They're panicking." I didn't ask for details. I didn't need the play-by-play. I'd already watched the truth land. That evening, confirmation came in the form of a mutual contact. Someone who worked in the same building. Someone who didn't know the full story but knew enough to sound shaken. "Ethan got pulled into a meeting," he said. "Like, not normal. Closed doors. Security badge issues. People are talking." I hung up and sat in the quiet. There wasn't satisfaction in it. Not the kind people imagine when they think of revenge. No grin. No victory lap. Just a steady sense that reality was finally doing its job. And when the implosion started, I didn't celebrate. I followed through. Emily came home late Sunday, moving fast, keys clinking, shoulders tight. She expected the house to be waiting for her the way it always had. Lights on, routines intact, me still in the same place, still available to absorb whatever she brought home. Instead, she found a locked door. She jiggled the handle once, twice, then knocked, sharp. "Daniel." Her voice rose. "What is this?" I opened it enough to look at her, not enough to invite her in. Her makeup was done, but it couldn't cover the strain in her eyes. Her hair was a little messy, like she'd run her hands through it too many times. She didn't look triumphant anymore. She looked cornered. "What are you doing?" she demanded, like I'd violated a rule she never agreed to. I held out an envelope. She stared at it. "What's that?" "Paperwork," I said. Her face tightened. "You can't be serious." "I'm serious." She took it with both hands like it was heavier than it should have been. When she saw what it was, she stepped back like the words had heat. "Daniel, listen," she started, already switching into pitch mode. "You're reacting to a situation you don't understand. This was for us. This was to secure." "No," I said, and the single word cut clean through the sentence. She blinked. "Excuse me? You don't get to reframe this," I told her. My voice stayed low, steady. "You didn't do it for us. You did it for you. And you expected me to be quiet because that's convenient." Her mouth opened, then closed. She tried again, softer, almost pleading. "It was one time, one night. It didn't mean anything." "That's the problem," I said. "It meant nothing to you." Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. Not sorrow, not remorse. Panic. The loss of control. "So you're just throwing away our marriage?" she whispered. I held her gaze. "You did. I'm just refusing to live in the wreckage." She looked past me into the house like she could still find her old life sitting on the couch. But it wasn't there. I stepped back and set a small bag by the hallway table, hers. Basics. Anything my attorney said was safe and reasonable. No cruelty. No destruction. Just separation. She swallowed hard. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not here," I said. Her jaw clenched. She wanted a fight. She wanted noise. Noise makes room for bargaining. Noise makes people second-guess. I didn't give her that. She gathered what she could with stiff, angry movements, stopping twice like she might turn around and try a different strategy. Nothing worked. When she finally walked out, it wasn't because I had a tantrum. It was because I stopped pretending a marriage can be rebuilt on calculated disrespect. The thing people don't tell you about consequences is how boring they are. Not the moment they hit, that part is loud. It's phones buzzing, doors closing, voices changing when a name comes up. But after the first wave, it turns into something colder. A slow rejection that follows you everywhere like a smell you can't wash out. Emily tried to come back with a new story. At first she played hurt, then misunderstood, then pressured. She rotated excuses the way she rotated outfits, whatever fit the room. She called me from a number I didn't recognize. "Daniel, please," she said, voice thin. "Just talk to me. I need you to understand what happened." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the blank wall of my office like it was a target. "I understand," I said. "That's why I'm done. You're being cruel." "No," I replied. "I'm being accurate." She made a small sound, frustration, disbelief, like I'd broken an unspoken rule by refusing to argue. "Ethan said he'd handle the fallout." "He said," I cut in. "Don't say his name to me like it's supposed to matter." Silence. Then she tried a new angle. "This is going to ruin me." I didn't raise my voice. "You ruined you." When I hung up, my hands were steady. That wasn't me being tough. That was me being finished. Ethan's downfall happened in a way that matched him. Behind closed doors with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He didn't get marched out in handcuffs. He didn't get some dramatic public firing in the lobby. He got meetings, reviews, investigations, the corporate version of a slow suffocation. Word traveled anyway. It always does. A man like Ethan builds his power on being untouchable, on the idea that rules are for other people. The moment that image cracks, everyone who ever swallowed their pride to keep their job starts remembering the taste. He tried to blame Emily. That part was predictable. I heard it through the grapevine. He'd painted her as aggressive, ambitious, confused. He implied she'd chased him. He implied he'd been trapped by her admiration. A grown man in a tailored suit, pretending he was helpless. Lauren didn't buy it. Neither did anyone who had ever watched how Ethan moved through a room. There's a certain type of guy who thinks charm is consent and authority is privacy. The company saw what he was, not immoral, just expensive. A liability that could blow back on leadership if they didn't cut him loose. He didn't lose his job the way people picture it. He lost his future. The leadership track ended. Access narrowed. People stopped taking his calls. Invitations disappeared. That's how it starts. The phone gets quieter, and it never gets loud again. Emily thought she could outrun it. She updated her resume like a soldier cleaning a rifle. New formatting. Strong bullet points. A fresh start tone. She posted motivational garbage online about growth and resilience, trying to look like she'd chosen change instead of being forced into it. Then the interviews started. At the beginning, she got a few. Companies like Talent, and Emily was talented. She knew how to speak in clean sentences. She knew how to present herself. She knew how to make a room lean in. But the problem with a scandal is that it doesn't stay in one room. People talk. Background checks don't just check crimes, they check reputations. Hiring managers ask quiet questions off the record. One phone call to the wrong person and the air shifts. She'd walk into an interview confident, and by the end, the interviewer's smile would be just slightly thinner. The follow-up email would be polite, sterile, and final. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Not because she wasn't qualified. Because nobody wants to inherit a fire. She came to pick up more of her things a week later and she looked different. Still put together, still trying, but the control had cracks. "I can't believe you're doing this," she said, standing in the driveway with a box in her arms. I leaned against the doorframe. "You mean holding you responsible?" Her eyes flashed. "I'm paying for it already. You're experiencing it," I said. "That's not the same thing." She stared at me like she wanted to find the old version of me. The guy who would soften when she got emotional, who would trade his spine for peace. He wasn't there. "People are treating me like I'm—" She stopped, swallowing the rest. "Like what?" She looked away. "Like I'm dangerous." I nodded once. "You are. That's the part nobody likes. Not the betrayal itself, but what it reveals. If someone can look you in the eye, call it strategic, and expect you to swallow it, what can't they justify?" Emily hugged the box tighter. "You're acting like I cheated because I wanted to." "You did," I said. "Want can be ambition. Want can be greed. Want can be ego. But it's still wanted." She opened her mouth, then shut it. Because arguing required her to admit something she still couldn't stand. That she hadn't been forced. She'd chosen. Family wasn't much better for her. At first, people rallied because families hate shame, and it's easier to defend the person you know than confront the truth. But support has a shelf life when the facts don't change. The first time someone asked her, gently, "Why would you tell him like that?" she snapped. The second time she got asked, she cried. The third time, people stopped asking. They started avoiding it. Friends didn't want to host a walking disaster. Couples didn't want her at dinners. Not because they were saints, but because her presence made the room feel unsafe. The wives watched their husbands a little harder. The husbands watched her a little too carefully. No one wanted that tension near their marriage like it was contagious. And Ethan? A man like him doesn't lose everything at once. He loses traction. That's worse. It's the slow realization that your name doesn't open doors anymore. He tried to reinvent himself online too. Some consulting nonsense. Some personal brand talk about leadership under pressure. He posted photos in expensive restaurants like money could buy amnesia. But the people who mattered, the ones with budgets, authority, and long memories, didn't forget. Because scandals don't just ruin romance. They ruin trust. And trust is the only currency that counts when the lights are off and the decisions are real. Meanwhile, my life got quieter in a different way. The first week alone in the house felt strange. Not lonely, just unfamiliar. Like living in a place after the furniture's been moved. I kept catching myself listening to her keys, her voice, the little sounds of a second person. Then I'd remember, and the quiet would settle back in. I didn't rebuild by stalking their downfall. I didn't need to. I'd already made my choice, and the world was doing its part without my help. I rebuilt the way you rebuild anything that matters, by making it solid. I cleaned out the closet, donated what I didn't wear, threw out things that carried her shape. I changed the sheets, repainted the bedroom, not out of spite, out of ownership. I took my mornings back, up early, gym, work, simple meals. No late-night conversations trying to save something that didn't want saving. People kept asking how I was holding up. I gave them the truth that made sense to me. "I'm fine," I'd say. "I'm just not available to be disrespected." Some nodded. Some looked uncomfortable, like standards made them reflect on their own compromises. That was their problem. One night, a buddy tried to bait me into celebrating. "Come on," he said. "You have to admit it's satisfying. Watching them fall." I took a sip of my beer and set it down. "I don't need them to fall," I said. "I just needed to stand up." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that. I didn't win a prize. I didn't get a dramatic moment where the universe applauded. What I got was cleaner. I got my self-respect back. And I learned something that should have been obvious from the start. When someone asks you to accept humiliation as the cost of their success, they're telling you exactly what you're worth to them. I believed her. Then I acted like it.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.